Dr. Efe. The issue of gender is a very sensitive one to the Trade Unions Congress, that is TUC Ghana, of which the National Union of Seamen, Ports and Allied Workers, NOSPA, we are members. And it is also the issue with the International Transport Workers Federation, ITF. But I think Dr. Efe should have started demonstrating that by the way you make your presentation. I was here on Thursday and I sat in two presentations. And I realized that when a man did a presentation, you give the man a cap. When a woman did a presentation, you did something that is covered we did not know. I think we must begin to look at that as well as we look at gender issues. Thank you very much. The women are covered, the men are not covered. We know men are taking care, but we don't know what the women are taking. And so that alone tells you the world in which we are. But my name is Michael Angmor, as said, and I'm the General Secretary of the National Union of Seamen, Ports and Allied Workers, NOSPA. And like I said earlier, we are members of the Trade Union Congress. There are 3 centers or labor centers according to Act 651 in Ghana. One is the Trade Union Congress, TUC, being the largest. Then we have the Ghana Federation of Labor, which is GFL. Then recently we have the one we call Forum. So as I stand here, I stand in the name of TUC, and you are all welcome. My presentation is very simple because the earlier speakers have done a lot of work for me. Mine is just to look at how we implement the laws, the conventions, the constitutions, the collective agreements, and all those that have been said ahead of me, how we implement them within the fishery sector. And so, as you are aware, we are here from 18th to 29th, and our issue is to look at the things that bother us around fishing. Recently, I heard somebody say fishing has gone scientific. And I was like, oh, okay. But fishing has been scientific all these years already. Is it that now that academia and other learned people are discovering or finding their space within fishing, or it is now that fishing is finding its way into academia? But our brothers, and very sorry, no sister, within the artisanal sector will tell you they can live here to Gabon without a compass. They can go as far as beyond the 12 nautical miles without a compass. And they can sail safely to ashore without a compass. Is that scientific? Or that is technical? Or that is experience? I leave the judgment for you. So that is our name. The topic we are dealing with is implementation of labor laws in the fishery sector, the fundamental principles and rights at work. So we need to look at the framework in which this topic sits and fits. So in Ghana, and I believe all over the world, there are legal and institutional frameworks that underpin or give the structure or give birth or host or embodied the implementation of labor laws in the fishery sector, and also the fundamental principles and rights at work. So, framework defined in the context of what we are coming to talk about. We are looking at the constitutions, we are looking at the laws, we are looking at the conventions, we are looking at rules, we are looking at systems, we are looking at practices that provide structures that governs obligations, that governs course of action, that governs defined enforcement, etc., to ensure fairness, firmness, consistency, etc. So the framework, let's talk about the legal framework. Like I said earlier, the earlier speakers has done a good job, so I will not talk so much about the ILO conventions. But briefly, if you are looking at the rights at work, the fundamental principles and rights at work, you cannot talk about it without mentioning Convention number 89, which was adopted in 1948. I was there. How many of us were there? You were not there. Okay. You were there. You really remember a good one. I was there in my father. So I was there. And it talks about freedom of association as far back then, not today. As far back 1948, when we were all there. Freedom of association and protection of the rights to organize was adopted. If you come to Ghana, the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, Chapter 5, Part 21, 1E, and the Labor Act 2003 at 651, Section 10D, and Section 79.1, all guarantee the freedom of association. The legal framework, you can also talk about Convention number 98, 1949, which gives workers, anywhere they find themselves, to organize and to collective bargaining. Convention number 100, 1951. Somebody said, I was there. I heard it. And that talks about equal remuneration, which also finds space in Ghana's legal system. We call it equal work for equal pay. Convention number 105, 1957, abolition of forced labor. And if you are a Ghanaian, 1957 should ring a bell, especially to the particular topic, abolition of forced labor. Then Convention number 111 or 111, 1958, discrimination. And like Dr. Ife said, actually within the fishery sector or the maritime sector, nobody discriminates against anybody. It appears the risk around those occupations are such that it takes only the bold to get involved. However, I know there are smart machines, smart vessels that are coming up, and we are very hopeful that with the advent of those machines, those equipments, those vessels, we'll have a lot of women around. So Convention number 111 prohibits discrimination in all forms. So that is about the legal framework. And now let's look at the institutional framework. So when you come to Ghana, we have the Ministry of Labor, Jobs and Employment, and through the National Labor Commission and then through the Labor Department, the act referenced earlier gets, should I say, the wheel to operate. So the Ministry of Employment, the Ministry of Labor, Jobs and Employment, in actual sense, does not do the work, but does through the National Labor Commission, which is an arbitration commission, and then the Labor Department that gives and regulate trade unions. Within the fishery sector, one of the institutions within the fishery sector in Ghana is also the Ministry of Transport, under which we have the Ghana Maritime Authority, which is also referred to as the competent authority pursuant to Ghana Shipping Act 2003 at 645. And then the Ghana Shipping Maritime Labor Regulation 2015, LI 2226. Then the third institutional framework is the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture. The name used to be Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development until just some few weeks ago. Then we have the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, where when workers feel their rights are not being, or workers feel they are not given the opportunity to exercise their rights, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice is there to help the aggrieved worker. So now we have seen the legal framework, we have seen the institutional framework within which the implementation sits. So how do we implement these laws within the fishery sector? I'm going to share our experience in Ghana with you, and probably you will situate it with wherever you are coming from. In our jurisdiction, the first call is that the parties in employment must initiate the process. The first point of call is the parties in employment. That is the employer, the employee. And this is pursuant to Section 10 and Section 79 of Act 651. The second call goes to the workers' organization, that is the trade unions. And that is why I am here. By Section 79 of Act 651, Ghana Labor Law, to represent workers in any undertaking, you must first register with the Registrar Department. Then you proceed to the Labor Department. So from Registrar General Department, you have your registration as a corporate organization, and it is strictly a corporate organization. You cannot be a one-man or one-woman representing workers. It must be a registered organization. Without registration, you go to the Labor Department to secure your trade union certificate. With a trade union certificate, now you can go to any employment or any undertaking to ask people if they'll be willing to join your trade union. In Ghana, before Act 651, 2003, there was an act called 299. Usually we call it closed shop. That act makes it impossible for any worker to make a choice of a particular trade union he or she wants to join. It is industrial based, it is occupational based. And so, for example, if you find yourself within the maritime space, there is only one trade union you can join, even if there are more than one. And at that time, there were not even more than one because the law makes it a trade base. So if you are within the maritime space, you can only join one trade union. Besides that, it is just one trade union. You, the worker, also have no choice to say, I will or I won't. Once you are employed, straightforward, you are a member. But in 2003, probably going through some of the ILO conventions, we amended the law and now makes it such that the worker has a choice to say, I will or I won't. And if the worker makes that choice, the worker also have the choice to say, I would like to join this trade union or that trade union. It is not forced on anybody. And so for a trade union to represent workers, you must be registered and be given the trade union certificate as seen in section 79. Then one of the things we did since 2022 till now, by ensuring that workers within the fisheries sector are protected by the legal systems within our jurisdiction, was that we set up a tripartite committee. And I remember NOSPA was the advocate institution that led to this. NOSPA came into the fisheries space in 2016. And some of the things we saw, we were like, no, these are things that sometimes we watch them on television or we read them from the news as if they are coming from other war-torn countries. We do not believe that these things goes on within our space here. And when we started, actually we had a lot of fight. A lot of fight with the operatives, a lot of fight with state institutions even. But you see, every fight must end one day somewhere. Fortunately, in 2022, we have the ILO Accelerated Lab 8.7 project that came to Ghana. And it's like that was NOSPA's safe haven, because they came to say exactly what we have been saying, but they came with a stronger, a bigger, a broader, a deeper voice than NOSPA alone. And so when you see the tripartite constituents in the fishing sector, all thanks to the ILO 8.7 lab, I thought you were going to give them some hands of applause. Oh, they are not here. Good. So what did we do with this organization? We brought on board all the parties, all the players within the fishery sector, starting with the trawl, then tuna joined, and others will join very soon. And that was the platform where we were discussing the issues according to our laws, according to conventions. And at that time, Ghana had already received a yellow card from the European Union. And therefore, it also made our work a bit easier, because in that case, we must comply in order to be out of the yellow card. And so we brought the regulator, we brought the employer, and we brought the fishers. The fishers were represented by NOSPA. The regulator was represented by Ghana Maritime Authority and the Fisheries Commission, including the Labor Department. And the employers were represented by GITA, Ghana Industrial Trawlers Association, and then GTA, Ghana Tuna Association. Our work was simple. Is there anything in law in Ghana that is not being implemented within the fishery sector? If the answer is yes, then what is it? And how do we get it done? And that is what changed our story. So in conclusion, I would like to say that for the rights of workers to be implemented within the fisheries space, you will first need a strong legal and institutional framework, noting that the wheel of law is entrenched in the institutions, and the strength of the institution is the law. For the law to move, the law will need the wheel of institutions to operate. The law is just in a book. For it to work, the law will need institutions, and that institution must be a strong one. But the institution's strength is also entrenched in the law, because the institution cannot get up and go and say or do anything that is not prescribed in law. The second thing is we will need a cordial industrial relations between the parties in employment. So currently, as we speak, that was even just Friday, last week Friday, the Ghana Industrial Trawlers Association had their AGM, that is annual general meeting, and fishers were invited, unlike before. But today, in that highest decision-making body, fishers were invited, demonstrating the cordial relationship between the employer and then the employee. The third thing is a strong collaboration among the tripartite constituents, and this is very, very important. If you come to the industrial sector today, industrial fisheries sector in Ghana today, you have the Ghana Maritime Authority and the Fisheries Commission bonding so well, such that if Ghana Maritime Authority has an issue or want to implement a certain policy or a legal framework or a piece of law, Ghana Maritime Authority makes it more or less a licensing condition. And so the collaboration between the Ghana Maritime Authority and the Fisheries Commission is such that if Ghana Maritime Authority say, without this, Fisheries Commission don't issue the license, that is the order. It's not an order from Ghana Maritime Authority, but because of the close relationship between the two, it almost becomes like a licensing requirement. And if you don't comply, you will not get your license. So I have a piece of note here. And I say where there are weak institutions and there are ineffective supervisions and there are corrupt officials, implementing labor laws and the fundamental principles and rights at work in any fishing sector will suffer. Thank you very much. If you have any question, I am here for you. Thank you.